there, guys!
Stop. It's already Michael from the future. I apparently don't know how to focus a camera, so I apologize. It eventually does get focused.
It's me, Ben! I'm here to go ahead and do the new Rastakhan's Rumble card review. Let's get started! The first card we have here is a 7-drop neutral card. Oh god, I gotta go! Ben, were you trying to do my card reviews? Ben, this is my show. You can't take it. Sit here. I'll ask for your opinions on cards later, okay? Also, you're dirty. Stop playing in mud. Welcome to another card review video. Rastakhan's Rumble has been releasing more cards than I can keep up with because it's Thanksgiving and I decided to stuff myself with turkey. I missed some cards, so we're gonna go over them. So get ready for a kinda long video because there's a lot of cards we gotta go over. So the first card we're going to talk about is a 7-drop neutral minion called Rayville Balancer. It is a 2/7 taunt minion and it reads cost 1 less for each enemy minion. This is kind of cool. So the more minions that your opponent has, the more reason you have to want to play a taunt, which means that the cheaper this taunt then is. The only issue I have with it then, if they have a lot of minions, aren't they just going to be able to get through the taunt? Again, if you draw this in the early game against something like odd Paladin or a more aggro style decks, by turn 5, they might have like 5 or 4 minions on the board. This will then cost like 3-ish mana, which is fine. 3 mana for a 2/7 seems really good, but at what cost? Because they're then just gonna go ahead and get through your taunt anyway. So the more minions they have, the easier it is for them to get through the taunt, which then means that the less likely it is that the taunt will even stay on the board, but it'll also protect your face. So I don't know, this seems like a pretty interesting card because of the fact they're giving more things the ability to cost less, but that also means that for this card it's going to get taken out easier the lesser it costs. Anything with 2 mana or lower is fine because then you're also trading pretty efficiently. But if they have like a board full of big stuff and you play this isn't going to do a whole lot and they're just going to run it over really easily. Hopefully you're doing more than just this in a turn if you're playing this at a cheaper cost in like the mid or late game. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem that much more powerful of a card because they can always then just level up, and if they level up on like an odd Paladin, they're then 3/3s and the 2 attack isn't going to do anything, so then you're kind of stuck in that position.
You also have to think about Fungomancer as well.
I'm going to say this card isn't really that good, an interesting effect, but only 2 stars. The next card we have is a 2-drop neutral minion called Soup Vendor. It is a rare and it is a 1/4 minion, and whenever you restore 3 or more health to your hero, draw a card. I don't know how I feel about this card. It has a lot of health for 2 mana, doesn't have a lot of attack, so there's no reason for you to trade, and also it's a 2-drop, so how often are you going to be restoring a lot of health in the early game sort of? And there's better things that can draw you cards for 2 mana. You could play a Loot Hoarder, which can trade a little bit more effectively in the early game, and the Death Rattle will give you a card. You could also play Acolyte of Pain, which is at 3 mana in the 1/3, and it gives you a benefit for trying to use Acolyte of Pain to trade, because whenever it takes damage you draw the card. There's more efficient cards right now that draw you more cards. The only thing that I can really think of that might run this card might be Heal Paladin, or it's pretty positive that they want Heal Paladin to be a thing. So if you're running a budget Heal Paladin sort of thing, or you're running an even budget sort of Heal Paladin, I don't know, because then you won't be able to play the Acolyte of Pain. But do you really want to draw cards in even Paladin? I don't know, and I'm not really sure. The other thing that you could do is play it in Warlock, like a Zoolock sort of situation, to where it's another minion on the board and you're going to be healing yourself with Warlock anyway because you're taking so much damage, so potentially you might want to run this there. It seems pretty bad, and there seems to be other ways to draw you cards more efficiently, and so until those rotate out of standard, which they won't because I'm pretty sure Loot Hoarder and Acolyte of Pain are both in the classic set.
They definitely are.
They'll never rotate out, which means that Soup Vendor really doesn't have a spot I don't think, because those two cards in itself can do kind of the same thing that Soup Vendor does, but better and more efficient. So I think Soup Vendor is a 1-star card. I really don't see this being played a lot or see this really even being good. So the next card that we have is a 5-mana mage spell at the epic slot. It is called Blast Wave. It is deal 2 damage to all minions, which we already have as one of the explosive potion, which is a 2-drop.
It's actually called Volcanic Potion.
So 5-drop, deal 2 damage, 2-drop, 2 damage. There's a big mana difference, and that is because Overkill add a random mage spell to your hand, which is pretty good. You know, that's not bad. Blast Wave could see some play in the new lists for Quest Mage. By turn 5, your aggro decks that are kind of running the meta right now might have a pretty good board of 1/1s. And if you have a pretty good board of 1/1s, then your Overkill is really good. And I think you start to see the good value exchanges here when you get Overkill of 2 minions or 3 minions. So you're getting 2 or 3 random mage spells. And like I've said in the past, mage spells are usually pretty good. And you can generate another Blast Wave off of this to generate even more stuff. So I really do think that this card is going to see some play, because also if you think about it, last expansion, they were really pushing cards that gave Mage more ability to plus spell damage. That's pretty good with this card. If you can drop stuff that ups your spell damage, so you're doing way more than 2 damage, I think that Overkill would be way easier to accomplish and get your random mage spells, which is pretty good. Like, there is a couple cards that have +2 and +2 spell damage for pretty cheap of a cost. So if on turn 7, if you want to play the 1/2 drop element that gives your next spell +2 spell damage, and then play Blast Wave, everything with 3 health or less that dies, you get a random mage spell from it.
You're also guaranteed 1 spell because this minion has 1 health.
So with the mixture of the Overkill and the fact that there is plus spell damage stuff in Mage now, or more of it I should say, I think that Blast Wave will be seen pretty often in anything that wants random mage spells, like the Quest Mage stuff. So that seems pretty interesting and pretty good, and I'm gonna have to say 2.5 stars.
While editing this, I was thinking about it, and it's actually pretty good, so I'm gonna say 3 stars.
There we go, I finally got myself to be lit.
You also figured out how to focus the camera. Finally. Well done.
So the next card is a 3-mana neutral minion called Masked Contender. It is an epic card, and its battle cry states, if you control a secret, play a secret from your deck, which is pretty interesting. Definitely valuable in Hunter, definitely valuable in Mage. I guess kind of valuable in Rogue, even though the Rogue secrets are kind of trash, as well as the Paladin secrets are pretty trash as well, unfortunately. But if you want to run this in Secret Hunter, or if you want to run this in sort of Zoo Secret Mage, that's still kind of a little bit of a thing, then that seems like a pretty good value, because you get your secret from your deck. You also get a 2/4 in stats, which isn't bad as well. It just seems pretty good. It just seems like a pretty solid card if you care about secrets, but not a whole lot of things care about secrets right now, mainly just Hunter and Mage. And for that, I'm going to say that Masked Contender is only going to get 2 stars because it's a solid card with a solid body for 3 mana that gives you another secret from your deck, and for that it's pretty good. Just 2 stars. So the next card is a 1-mana neutral minion at the common slot called Serenite Taskmaster. It is a 2/3 minion, which is a lot of stats for your 1-drop, but the death rattle states summon a 0/3 free agent with taunt for your opponent. So when they do kill this, they get their free body on the board, which doesn't seem that big of a deal, to be totally honest. If they kill it, they get an 0/3 taunt, which isn't the most terrible thing in the world. And is it worth still playing for this? I think so. I think it's pretty good. For 1 mana, you get a lot of stats, and you force your opponent to try to deal with it off the bat. Dire Mole sees play, and Dire Mole has 1 less attack. This has 1 more attack than Dire Mole, and doesn't have that terrible of a drawback. You basically are giving them a minion that can't do anything unless they put resources towards it, which of course they can. There's lots of stuff that can buff it, or you know, the adjacent minions gain attack and stuff like that. So there is definite ways to give the O3 taunt attack, or to make the O3 taunt worth something. That also would mess up some of the res priest stuff, anything that wants to bring stuff back from the dead, like Hadronox Druid as well. If you try to Hadronox and you get an O3, it already feels bad that you get a Hex Frog off of the Hadronox, but if you get an O3 that's harder to kill than the Hex Frog, and you bring that back with a Hadronox, it's kind of annoying. Against some decks, it'll be annoying because it'll be in the taunt and res pool. Other decks, it'll be kind of against, because Shaman, Paladin, Warrior even can pretty easily give things attack. Druid for sure. It depends on the deck that you're playing, and because you can't choose what deck you're playing against, I'm going to give this card 2 stars. So the next card is a 4-drop Druid spell at the rare slot called Predatory Instincts. Cool, scary looking art, and I like the name of this card, just as a side note. But it reads, draw a beast from your deck, double its health. Off of this card and give it double health. Granted, we haven't seen the Druid Loa yet, but if you get the Druid Loa off of this, double its health. Doubling something's health already is still pretty good. The other beast that we have seen in Druid thus far has been the Iron Scale, or Ironhide Dire Wolf. That's not the right thing at all. It's called Ironhide Direhorn. I forgot what it was called. But if you double hat, that's now a 7/14 for 7 with the overkill effect, which is pretty good. Also the fact that if you get the Dire Mole off of this, then you get a 1/6 for 1. If you get, let's say, a Hadronox off of this, it's now a 3/18, which you don't really want your Hadronox to have more health, but still, it's a thing that you can do. It's not bad. We haven't seen too much support for beasts in Druid thus far. There's some, and there's definitely beasts in Druid. It's not like Hunter where there's things that synergize with it before this card.
That's a lie. We technically had Witching Hour.
Now potentially we have Beast Hunter and Beast Druid are both competing decks as well. That could be interesting. Obviously, one is a little bit more aggro than the other, but the other one has ramps, so it's an interesting thing if you can ramp really hard in Druid and then give yourself a doubled health minion that you have the mana for. If you could get on turn, I don't know, 5 or 6 even, that you get an Ironhide Direhorn with 14 health and 7 attack because you ramped and you doubled the health. That's pretty good on turn 4 or 5 because of the ramp stuff with Wild Growth, with Naturalize.
That's wrong. I meant Nourish.
If you really want to, Biology Project, even though that's kind of turned out to be pretty bad, giving your opponent 2 mana crystals as well, turns out isn't the best idea. There's potential here if they give us more beasts as well, so I'm liking it. I'm giving this card 2.5 stars. Oh my god, I'm doing a lot of talking. Oh boy, the next card we have is pretty interesting. It is Haunting Visions, a 3-drop Shaman spell at the epic slot, and it reads, your next spell you cast this turn costs 3 less. So it's a 3-drop preparation, which in all honesty isn't that good because you're just paying the 3 mana here instead of paying for the 3 mana on the spell. So that portion of it is kind of interesting. But the next one is Discover a Spell, which is pretty good. So you get to discover a random Shaman spell and it costs 3 less. Potentially. And I kind of see this as a Water Boy sort of. Water Boy is kind of bad because all it does is add a body to your hero power, which is kind of You play something for 2, and then the thing that was 2 is now 0. For this, if you play Haunting Visions, you're basically playing the 3 mana on something else. So say we're playing a Volcano. You're playing a 2-drop Volcano after you play a 3-drop Haunting Visions, which still equals 5 mana, but you're getting a random spell, which seems interesting, which is cool enough in itself to where that seems good. You're getting more random generation cards because You now have a whole bunch of stuff that really revolves around the fact that Shaman is playing a lot of spells, which is pretty interesting. So I think this card isn't terrible, but the idea that you have to pay 3 mana to then get 3 less on a card is basically saying play whatever spell that you were going to play, but also discover another one. Like, I'm still going to play the Volcano because my opponent has a board, but I'm also going to discover something else before I play that Volcano. And it feels good because you're playing the Volcano for less mana. So for newer players who don't quickly put together the fact that, oh, I just paid 3 mana for this and then I'm going to pay 3 less mana, it kind of cancels itself out. Not that I'm saying the new players are dumb, but someone who's more experienced in card games in general can kind of get that. Maybe somebody who isn't, who opens his pack for the first time in some cases and, you know, gets this card, they're like, whoa, my next thing costs 0, or my next thing costs less. It feels good to play something for 3 less mana and get something else as well. Not bad. You also have the value of getting something that costs higher than 3, which you still have to pay the mana. But say you know, discover a 3rd Volcano or a 3rd Hex or a 3rd Lightning Strike, or you're in a tight spot and you manage to get a Raining Toads of some sort like that. There's just a lot of stuff that you could get off of this card that would give you a 3 of, that you would want a 3 of, or something that's situational that you don't want to run in your deck, but you get that anyway. Of course, that's not going to be consistent because it's a discover effect, so there's that as well. But I really don't think that this is like a terrible card, so I think it's going to be 3 stars. Haunting Visions gets 3 stars. So the next card is the Priest Warlord, and I'm kinda about it, to be totally honest. It is a 8-drop called Princess Talangi. She is a 7/5 minion. Her battle cry is summon all minions from your hand that didn't start in your deck. This obviously goes with the Spirit card. Basically, you get a bunch of value off of the Spirit card, which gives you 1-cost minions of things that die. And you also then play Blomsandi, which draws you all of the new cards that are now 1-costed from your deck. So you fill your hand with a whole bunch of these 1-costed cards. Then you play Princess Talangi to then summon all of the cards that you drew off of Blomsandi onto the field. It feels like Priest is going to get really weirdly combo-y, more than it already is. Not that it's super combo-y now that I really think about it. It's only really just like the Divine Spirit Interfire kind of stuff, and then just grinding off of like copies and copies off of Copy Priest and stuff like that. But this seems like they're really giving Priest a combo-esque deck. A lot of setup to be, hey, here's my spirit cards, and then you just go off of the spirit cards sort of stuff, and then you get the Blomsandi effect, and then you get the Princess Talangi effect. It seems like a very linear sort of deck that you will be running if you want to do this sort of thing. If you want to build the Priest Blomsandi Talangi deck, which I personally am not a fan of combo decks, which is just my personal preference, so that could be why I'm not super excited about this card. But even though I'm not super excited about it, I can see the potential and understand that other people who do like combo decks can and will get excited about this, and I think this is a pretty good card. You also have other stuff in Priest already that is stealing stuff. Psychic Probe, Thought Visions, Mind Steal. There's a bunch of stuff like that you can get other stuff from your opponent's deck and into your hand. So Talangi isn't necessarily only for Blomsandi, but you could definitely see the connection between that stuff. So this card is by no means bad. I just personally am not super hyped about it. I think this is a 4-star card. The only reason why I'm not giving it 5 stars is because there is a lot of setup that is required for this for you to get maximum value off of it. But you have to get lucky off of the Mind Steals and Mind Vision and all of that stuff. And the Psychic Probes have to be played and grab stuff out of your opponent's decks that's worth playing this late in the game, because if you get some early game cards and you drop to Princess Talangi, the effect of Princess Talangi isn't going to be as powerful if you get late game cards. So there's some RNG aspect of it, and you have to set up a huge play going from Spirit to Blomsandi to Talangi. So there's either some RNG luck that you have to have off of the stealing cards, or you have to set up a lot with the spirits and Blomsandi. So for that reason, I'm not going to give her 5, but 4 stars. So the next card is a neutral minion 4-drop called Murloc Tasty Fin. He is adorable looking. Look at that little Chef Murloc. Look at him. He's so cute. Like, look at this. Adorable. But he's a 3/2, a Murloc, and he's okay, I guess. His death rattle is draw 2 Murlocs from your deck, so he's immediately susceptible to silence if you really want to silence it. I don't see why you would. No one silences a loot hoarder, so there's no reason for them to waste their owls or their spellbreakers on Tasty Fin, but that's something that you have to keep in mind. Also, again, this is very niche in a Murloc deck, and seeing as though the only reason why you would want to play this is in a Murloc deck, that immediately bumps it down a couple of stars because you're not seeing a whole lot of Murloc decks right now, besides Murloc Shaman, because that's the only thing that really has any reason to play Murlocs. Because of that, I think this card is going to get 2 stars. You don't see a whole lot of Murloc stuff going around, but if Murloc stuff does start showing up again, I think this will be a pretty decent card to throw in there. A little bit high costed for a 3/2, but you get the 2 other Murlocs from your deck, so it's not that bad. It's draw power for Murlocs. Do we see a lot of Murlocs right now? No, not really, so 2 stars. So the next card we have is a 3-drop warrior weapon. It is called Overlord's Whip. It's a pretty cool name. I like the name. The art's kind of bland, so whatever. But this is a common 2/4 weapon, and it reads, after you play a minion, deal 1 damage to it. This seems pretty okay. Pretty alright, pretty consistently combo-y. Mostly because there's a lot of enrage minions in Warrior and in the neutral class that then Warrior can play. So you immediately get the enrage effect. There's also stuff that gains attack whenever something gets damaged, and you gain armor whenever something's damaged. So if you have those on the board, you can be racking up that minion's attack. You can be racking up your own armor count. You can be hitting enrage effects. These are all things that are good and all things that Warrior would like to do. If we see a enrage based Warrior deck or a combo deck that plays a lot of little stuff and then creates a big minion because things kept getting damaged. I forget what the card is. This is what I was talking about. So there's that. It's also a 2/4 for 3, so you can swing into some stuff and take care of some little things on turn 4, turn 3. That's not bad as well. I think this is a pretty solid card, and I think that you can, if you wanted to, build a pretty janky enrage sort of deck around this. If not, you can also throw this in wild and play the big gloppy gloop legendary I was talking about, Rotface. That whenever it gets damaged, you then get a random legendary minion. So you can do that as well, I guess, in wild. So you can just play this and then the big gloppy guy and you immediately get a legendary right off the bat. So there's that as well. So there's a lot of stuff that this can do. I think it's pretty interesting and not a bad statted weapon for 3. So for that, I'm gonna give this 3 stars. So we finally get a little sneak peek of the Druid Loa Spirit package. We have the Spirit. It is a rare 1-drop Spirit of the Raptor. It is an 0/3 like all of them with the stealth for 1 turn, all that stuff. And after your hero attacks and kills a minion, draw a card, which is a couple things. First of all, not bad. Odd Druid can play this, or you could kill something with 2 or less health with the Odd Druid's hero power, and then you get to draw a card, which gives you some pretty good early draw. You play this turn 1, you hero power turn 2, you kill whatever they played, which is probably going to be a low-costed minion, unless it's a dire mole, and then you get to draw the card immediately. So this immediately can become your hero power becomes draw a card in the early game. If you get this late game, it's pretty bad. I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of bad. I don't want to run my thing into a 1 damage Lich King and take 8 damage just for me to draw the card. I say Lich King as in any other big minion that people are going to be playing late game. I don't run my face into big minions on turn 11, turn 12, just for me to grab a card out of my deck. And by that point, there's also other easier things that just draw me cards. Like I've already said, there's Acolyte, there's Loot Hoarder, there's stuff like that that gives me cards as well. But interestingly enough, a lot of the times the spirits, well, all of the times, The spirits and the lowers are supposed to have a pretty synergistic effect. That's their whole theme. So I'm curious to see what the raptor for Druid is. The spirit wants you to draw cards, then is the raptor something that costs less for each card in your hand, like a Twilight Drake effect?
That's Mountain Giant, you idiot.
If so, that's kind of interesting, but also not very original for a legendary, unless it's something like bananas, like gain attack and health for each card in your hand, or it costs less and gain stats for each card in your hand. I don't know why the Loa for Druid would want you to draw cards. I'm just not sure, which makes me wonder why the spirit has you drawing cards. It also makes me kind of excited. Like, I kind of want to know what the Loa for Druid is now that makes the spirit want me to draw cards. So far, I'm going to give this 2 stars because your hero power killing something is only really relevant in the early game for Druid, unless you want to use some of the cards that give your hero power plus attack, which at the moment we have no reason to really do that. They're pretty bad. There's not enough value to get off of that. So right now it's kind of 2 stars, but I'm curious to see what the Loa for Druid is now. So we have another legendary. This is another neutral legendary. It is a 4-drop and it's called Grifter. It is a 4/5 and it reads Battlecry, discover 2 cards. Give 1 card to your opponent at random. This is weird. I don't know what to think of it. I don't understand why. This is just bad. Do you discover a good card and a bad card and then you have a 50-50 shot of giving your opponent the really bad card? Or do you just discover 2 bad cards in your hand and you just give you and your opponent bad cards? Or do you just choose 2 mediocre cards so you get a mediocre card and your opponent gets a mediocre card? Or do I get 2 really good cards and give my opponent a really good card and give myself a really good card? I don't know what to do here. And it's also discover, so if I'm playing this in like Shaman, there's not a whole lot of great Shaman spells for me to discover, but if I'm playing this in Mage, there's plenty of fantastic Mage spells for me to discover and give to my opponent. Blizzard, you already tried to do this kind of thing with the projects. You know how many of the projects are being played right now? Not many. Sometimes the Mage project, because Hand Mage is a fun meme deck to try to play, and then you're gonna do more things that affect you and your opponent equally. You didn't learn, Blizzard. This is bad. I don't want to give my opponent a random card. If there's a 50-50 chance I get the thing I want, or I get 2 things I want, and it's a 100% chance that I get what I want, and it's a 100% chance that my opponent gets what I want, or it's a 100% chance that I get what I don't want, and my opponent gets what I don't want. There's just, like, if this was like discover 3 cards and give 1 to your opponent, then cool. I get more value. I get 2 cards and my opponent only gets 1 card. And if I choose 3 really good cards, then my opponent gets 1 really good card and I get 2 really good cards. Or if I, choose 3 mediocre cards, then I get 2 mediocre cards and my opponent gets 1 mediocre card. And then that way, there's more value for me inherently no matter what. There's also more value for me playing this card in a sense because it's a body. But if I give my opponent a way to get rid of the body, then there's no reason for me to play the body in the first place. This is bad. This is another bad neutral legendary. 1 star. So the next card we have is a 6-mana mage minion called Arcana. It is a common, it is a 3/3 elemental, and battle cry if you played an elemental last turn, deal 3 damage to all other minions. Cool. Good job, Blizzard. Give Mage more AoE. They now have Blast Wave, Arcana, Flame Strike, Blizzard, Frost Nova, the other potion that does 2 damage to everything. There's just a lot of AoE effects now, so thanks for that. Cool. And it's something to put into Elemental Shaman, which if you didn't see one of the last card reviews, 2 card reviews ago, I don't like Elemental Mage. It's really good and I can't beat it and it irritates me. So thanks for giving them more cards for Elemental Shaman to play. The one thing that's the upside to this card is it costs a ridiculous amount of mana. You get to play a 6-drop that is a 3/3 that will not stay on the board, but it will clear your opponent's board, hopefully. It's one more than Blizzard, one less than Flame Strike.
That was incorrect. Blizzard cost 6 mana as well, so it's the same as Blizzard and 1 less than Flame Strike.
Honestly, you would just play Blizzard unless you want to run even more AoE effects in a mage deck for whatever reason, because you already have potentially 4. You have the ability to randomly generate more of them if you want. But that being said, it's still not terrible. It's just really high costed. It fits well into Elemental Shaman. Other downside is it affects your side of the board as well. So if you drop this onto an empty board, it's cool. If you drop this onto a board of things that have high health, then you're fine as well. Also, it's turn 6, so against some aggro decks that kind of have a wide board that this would be worth playing against. Turn 6 might be a little bit late, but 3 damage is enough to where it's pretty significant amount, so if they Fungalmancer or a level up, it'll still be worth it. It'll still do a significant amount of damage. So, I don't know. It seems pretty alright. It's more AoE effects with the elemental thing attached to it. So, I'm going to say 2.5 stars. The next card is a 5-mana weapon for Paladin called Fieriac Battle Axe. It is a rare, it is a 3/3 weapon, and overkill. Give a minion in your hand +2/+2, which is pretty cool. We will never get anywhere near a hand buff Paladin again, I don't think, unless you're playing Wild. Right now, the only 2 cards in Standard that buff cards in your hand for Paladin are this card and the other 6-drop that's pretty bad. But I see, you know, +2/+2 is pretty good. You're killing something that's less than 2 health to get that overkill. 5 mana is kind of a lot for only a 3/3 weapon. It fits pretty nicely into Odd Paladin, which is running a lot of smaller minions usually, so you can buff your smaller minions and try to overkill your opponent's minions. You're gonna have to do some quick maths, obviously, to try to overkill your opponent's minions with your smaller minions plus this weapon in, say, like an Odd Paladin sort of deck. I don't think this is super bad. It's also not great, but the effect for an overkill that's probably easy to get at 5 mana, it's not super bad. It's not terrible. I don't know a whole lot of decks that are going to want to buff their minions, especially if they're working on late game stuff. This could be a good card to be played in the early game when your opponent is playing things with 2 health or less, but it's a 5-cost card, so it's pretty expensive to be wanting to deal with stuff in the early game. So that seems a little bit out of place, and especially with the stuff that they're trying to push with Paladin, this sort of a late game sort of thing, which would make sense because then you would then buff the big stuff in your hand that you're waiting to play. Like if you buff the Load with this, that would be ridiculous. It's now a 9/7 with Lifesteal, Rush, Divine Shield, which is pretty crazy. It probably will see some experimentation, I think. Maybe not a whole lot of play per se, but I think people are going to try to make it work, and people might play it in Wild for the hand buff effect. So that's also a pretty interesting thing. So for that, I'm going to say this card is probably a solid 3-star card. The next card is called Totem Smash. It is a 1-drop common Shaman spell. It is deal 2 damage, overkill, summon a basic totem. You are killing something with 1 health and getting a basic totem for 1 mana. This doesn't help with overload synergies. This is just killing something small to get something small. I don't think it's that good. You're getting a basic totem, which can be a hit or miss, and the only reason why you would play this would to be 2 damage for 1, I guess, or try to kill something with 1 health, try to get that overload effect. So there's that as well. I don't know. This seems pretty kind of I'm just gonna say 1 star. The next card is a 1-mana Warlock spell called Grim Rally. It is a rare and destroy a friendly minion. Give minions +1/+1. Seems pretty interesting. Give your minions +1/+1. That's important. Basically, you kill one of your small things and make your other things big. This will go perfectly into Zoolock, I feel. Kill one of the things that only has 1 health left, and then buff the other 4 things that are still on your board. This seems pretty strong in a Zoolock deck. Like, really strong in a Zoolock deck. Also, this is a 1-mana spell that can destroy your cube. You could Void Lord, cube the Void Lord, play Grim Rally, kill the cube, get your 2 Void Lords, and buff everything on the field. This card seems really good because it kills a friendly minion. You can buff your Zoo boys because it's costless. You can kill your cube and buff your boys. It's another Dark Pact that helps Zoolock as well. This card's really good, really powerful. I think 4 stars. Grim Rally is going to see a lot of play, whether it be in Zoolock or a way to kill your cube. So the last card that I have in store for you guys is the Spirit of the Frog, which is the Shaman Spirit card. It is a 3-drop rare 0/3 stealth for 1 turn, all of the normal spirit stuff, and it reads, whenever you cast a spell, draw a spell from your deck that costs 1 more, which is really good, I think, because it's tutored spell draw. If you know you're going to want a volcano soon, you might want to play a hex or another 4-drop spell to then draw out your volcano. If you want Rain of Toads, you can play your volcano, which draws you into a Rain of Toads. You can play Spirit of the Frogs on turn 3. On turn 4 you play a spell. On turn 5 you play a spell. On turn 6 you play a spell. Then on turn 7 you play a spell. You can roll into curves because the spirits and the Loas usually have a lot of stuff in common. They're very synergistic. That's kind of the theme of this whole set. I'm assuming that the Loa is going to want you to basically play spells. Also, Zenyatta. It's not Zenyatta, but now I'm calling him Zenyatta because I didn't mean to call him that, but oh well. Electra Storm Surge and the Spirit, all of those cards now care about you playing Shaman spells. You also have Hagatha with the Bewitched hero power. That's even more spells. Shaman just seems like it really cares about the fact that you're playing a lot of spells. So this, with tutored spell draw, makes sense, and I think it's pretty good. I don't know how long it'll stay on the field though, so I don't know how long you can tutor these spells for. And it also makes the Loa seem very interesting. What does the Loa now mean? Is the frog for Shaman going to be something to do with spells? Obviously it will be, but I don't know what it's going to be, and I'm very curious and very interested in what it will be, because it could be really cool. I think it could be really cool what it's going to do that requires us to play so many crazy spells. I don't know, and I'm excited. I want to know what the new Shaman Loa does, because now that I see the Spirit of the Frog, it makes sense that it has to do something with spells, so it would be cool. So that is the last card that has been released thus far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I stream Hearthstone, Pokemon, and some other games, so you're going to want to check all that stuff out. And if you hit the notification bell, it'll notify you when I stream and post more card reviews, because there's a ton of Hearthstone content that's going to be coming out here shortly. Also, check out the links in the description. There's social media. Social media is the best way to keep in touch with everything StevensvilleGamers is doing. You can get merch down below if you want to. And if you do, see the Patreon link down there and you feel so inclined to support me and the channel, all the money on the Patreon will be going to get better equipment for the channel. So I thank you very much if you do support me. You don't have to. Just watching these videos is help enough for right now. But hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you did, do all that kind of stuff. And hopefully you guys keep the audio spirit with you, because Michael from StevensvilleGamers is going to be signing off now. So 1, 2, 3. Aw, yeah.